Okay, so we're just gonna play Elden Ring PvP.
I mean, I don't want to embarrass you in front of your audience, so.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Cool. What are we doing wrong?
Really, there's no real answer to that because there's as much you're doing right as you're doing wrong. And then, really, in marketing, doing things wrong is not really an applicable statement. There are some things that are specifically wrong, but not really that you're doing. Most of the stuff that you do is right or in the realm of right.
Right.
Your website is good. Your YouTube channel is good. Your content is good. You've even had some success with the content as far as like the Venmo contracting payment thing. And keeping that updated is good. Like, and then when you move into digital marketing, right, there's a lot of things that can go wrong while you're still doing the right things. It's kind of like the permutations of how you do things and the combinations of those. For example, on like SEO optimized content, someone will tell you, okay, you have to write a certain amount of words. So it's like, 1,500 words or 2,000 words or whatever. And then people think, okay, so longer content is obviously better, without really understanding the why behind that. So if it's not keyword focused, if you don't specifically help your users or provide assistance in some fashion, if you don't provide them a way to take action or to solve a problem, if you're not matching their search intent, things like that, all of that is what's important about long form content. Just putting words on a page is not going to do anything. That's a problem a lot of people run up against when
they
they're
just put words
content
on a page.
Exactly. And it can be the same with any form of content. It can be your email marketing or your video marketing, YouTube marketing. If you were to say, okay, like your YouTube channel, I've done the work in trying to distill my knowledge into this series. Okay, so the NGMI series, for example. Okay, but now how do I turn that around and make it into like this blown up content thing, right? And this huge content strategy. That can be tough. And especially when you're trying to use content marketing to drive organic traffic, period.
Right.
Or just to brute force that traffic, right? And because we want that 2% or 3% conversion rate or 5 or 10%. When you get that long form content, no one really knows without being told that there are specific structures that you have to follow, right? And then all the SEO on top of that. Do all the keywords match in the title and the meta description? On the page itself, is the page laid out properly? Do you use headings correctly? That's where the content really starts to shine.
Do you feel like that's like for most small business owners that they just don't know those basic things?
On average, they tend to get it once it's explained to them. As a marketing professional, these things are basic. So when you're trying to teach someone that and they're like, oh, I didn't know any of this, and it's like, well, yeah, that's why I'm here though. They're selling sandwiches where they don't really understand that this digital landscape that we live in now is the most important thing for their business. And they just don't put the time into it. The marketing competencies just aren't there when they start. A lot of small business owners, they go into it, they're like, I want to be my own boss, or I have a good idea, or I'm sick of working, my boss sucks, so let's just start a business. And then they start throwing things at the wall and they wonder why it isn't working. And you have people like you who are younger, then that's more apparent. They understand that this is a section of the market that they need to deal with, and they need to deal with quickly.
One of the things that we talked about last time that we got together was like,
your question was like, aside from do everything correctly all the time, is and then my answer was do everything correctly all the time.
Yes. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, if we have a certain timeline, right? Like if the business is going out of business in 6 months, for example, hypothetically. Yeah, correct. The most effective thing to do right now, if you have the money, is brute force paid advertising, right?
There are many different ways to use money to like brute force your marketing efforts. So it could be hiring employees, it could be hiring marketing interns to deal with social media or to do the video editing or whatever it is. Or you just toss $1,000 a month in ads and hope that pays off and that you did everything correctly at every single step. Like the budget that we talked about that you have is generally a good place to start, as long as everything's working correctly and as long as you keep up to date with it. Small business owners don't really, understand the marketing landscape until they start getting an education on it. The first thing they might do is think, okay, I need to do ads. So they'll go to Facebook or Instagram or some social media platform and they'll
promote a post.
Yeah. Things like that, right? And then they never check up on it again. But the problem there is that you're a small business owner. It's you and maybe one or two other people. And so do you actually have time for that? Does it justify the cost that you put into the advertising? Can you really keep a good eye on it? I tend to tell people to be conservative with their ad budgets.
What's conservative?
I try to kind of like put the budgets into like a monthly scale so that you're not thinking my click-through rate was really good on this day and this day, but on these days it was bad. Those are the sorts of things that you should be looking at, but not from like a budget standpoint. Just a longer time frame. You get a better idea of what you're looking at. The monthly or even like the lifetime of that ad. What's the total budget? And let Google eat up the money as it sees fit. And so maybe that means that your ad won't run for as long. But it will mean that Google has at least taken that money and put it into the buckets it feels is correct.
I feel like for a lot of people, there's almost this like distrust of like that Facebook or Google or whoever they're advertising with is like not gonna handle
smoking these meats here,
the money that they put into it correctly, given the parameters that they're giving.
For people who say that about, let's say, Facebook or Instagram, I would agree. The general purpose of advertising on these platforms, all the social media platforms I'm talking about, like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, even Pinterest, LinkedIn, all these different platforms that have advertising sections, it's to make money. That's the primary goal. And then it's to make the ads effective enough that people continue paying the money.
Right.
So people will get stuff out of it. So I can understand when people are like, okay, well, my Facebook ads just didn't do well. And part of that is because the platform is so complex that they don't understand what they're doing. And then the other part is that Facebook is not really trying that hard. But when you move over to Google, first of all, is also trying to make money off of you. But it also has like a vested interest in serving its users the proper things. Because it's a search engine first. So by matching search intents and user intents, then that further reinforces the trust that people have in the search engine. Let's say I went to Google or Bing. Bing is where this happens often, where you'll be like, give me a pizza recipe, and it's like, did you mean grilled cheese? Like, if you go to Google and you type in the best deep dish pizza recipe, then you're gonna get that in one of the first results, if not the first result. They want their ads to do the same thing. And that's why you have to jump up through a lot of hurdles to have an effective ad on Google, is because they don't allow bad advertising on Google.
I feel like marketing as a whole is often looked at lately by especially people in my age as like the digital avenues. But then there's also network marketing and like, print and all of these other aspects. Do you feel like those are as relevant for most small businesses now?
First, that's like the challenge between outbound and inbound marketing.
Right.
So when we talk about like traditional forms of marketing, billboards, TV, radio, newspapers, magazines, things like that, there are still businesses in existence right now that benefit from those. And it's not just the big ones like McDonald's and Starbucks and stuff like that, Amazon. They do TV ads to remind people they exist, not to bring in more business. McDonald's will run an ad and you very rarely know what they're advertising outside of, please come to McDonald's.
Well, the McRib is back. I don't know if you've heard.
Or, excuse me, bitch. They got to do that seasonal stuff because if they had it all the time, no one would like the McRib.
Right.
We've got to throw casual shade at the big corporation. And there are a lot of small businesses right now. Their spaces are really good in traditional marketing and not so much on the digital side. Let's say an estate lawyer does really well with a mixture of traditional marketing and digital marketing because they have dual target markets. So like an estate lawyer might go not just after a senior citizen who's trying to make a will or trying to get a power of attorney, but they'll also go after the children of those people.
Interesting.
Who are in a lower age group, who are more likely to be using digital services. So you can hit them both at the same time with like a newspaper ad or like a neighborhood periodical, which is why those still exist. Over time, obviously, that's going to change. And traditional marketing will stop being as effective as it is right now. There are a lot of small businesses that can still utilize those. And a lot of them are my clients that can, or at least do that mixture. The other problem with the outbound marketing, the traditional marketing, is that it's like almost impossible to measure the ROI. You can't really know what the return on investment is unless, you start getting money all of a sudden. Like, you're like, where did this money come from?
Or the Publishers Clearinghouse check just shows up at your door.
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations on your radio show. Yeah.
And it's really hard to target. You're just shouting out into a void.
The digital space is much easier, obviously, to track, but I still feel like for a service-based business, like to measure conversions and where those come from, it's so hard. How do you determine that someone has converted? For us, it's like, we send a proposal, they sign, and then agree. We could implement Salesforce and then just use all of the user ID tracking and all that kind of stuff. But for a small business, like the best that I feel like most people are going to do is Google Analytics, right? My bounce rate's 57%, and I had 3 people click on this button, and I guess I got a call, so, something worked.
I'm not sure that I would say that something worked in that example, but yeah, that's a huge problem. And it just comes down to the targeting parameters. For conversion in particular, it's what conversions do you want to track is the first question to ask there. So is it just having someone click on your ad? That's a conversion. Is it them actually interfacing with your website in some fashion? That's a conversion. Are they actually clicking on your calls to action? Then that's a conversion. And then when they actually deal with you face to face, that's a conversion. And then when they pay you, that's a conversion. So it's really about like trying to track all of those as different metrics. We have like the different stages of the conversion process. Not only can I track these through like Google Search Console or Google Analytics or through like a CRM like Salesforce, or even through, you could just make an Excel sheet and do it on your own.
Right.
You wanted to put in ungodly amounts of time. Once you start to put all those trackers together, then you start to see how all of these connect and how you can actually help their connections. One of the big processes that we do as digital marketers, or me as like a website developer and designer, is trying to find a way to shorten that time. So instead of clicking on the ad, clicking on multiple things on the website, going through the front page of the website, doing navigation, looking at the About Us page, and then finally deciding that I want to buy something, and then clicking on the call to action. Instead, we want to shorten that journey, because at that point, we're just putting up barriers to purchase, because they may have already decided like further down in that process, and we could have captured them then. Part of like the tracking of those conversion rates for all that stuff we talked about is finding where we can just cut things out of the middle to get them to the end. So, I mean, even, Google Analytics, Google Search Console, those would be my top 2 tools. And then, a CRM.
So when I see that people are clicking on my ad, but then I'm not getting any calls, it's not because I'm a shit marketer. It's just because they're going through too long. Or it could be, I guess. It could be that.
Well, I mean, you're talking about like really low volume now. It's easy to be like, oh, this ad isn't working when only 30 people have seen it, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, okay, so is the ad wrong, or is just my budget too low? Which is the answer, by the way.
Okay, let me just throw some more money into it real quick.
And we can talk in more detail about how you actually do the budgeting, but the general thing is that it's easy to feel like that's not working. First of all, Google's not going to tell you that. You should actually try this. If you do the same kind of ad for Google and Facebook, Facebook will tell you that your budget is too low. Google probably won't.
They won't say anything?
No, because for Google, it doesn't matter. It's just about search intent.
So you think for us, our budget's too low?
Probably, because you're competing on specific keywords. Who are you competing against? And do you think you can win against them? We'll boil it down and say you're an accounting firm.
Okay.
And
Fair.
you're you're competing against like a national accounting firm. They have
Yeah.
more resources than you do.
Oh yeah, they're gonna
And
crush me.
right, exactly. They may be bidding on some of these keywords on PPC for like $7, $8, $10 a click,
Okay.
where your bidding is really low.
Okay.
So you're going to lose that war,
Yep.
and you're not even going to win one of the battles. And that's where the keyword research comes into play, where we start thinking about, okay, we have to find long tail keywords that are in a specific search volume that we can target that our competitors may not be, or may only be putting a small amount of their budget toward. And you can do that with the Google Keyword Planner and on Google Search Console. We have things called striking distance keywords. We can look at your Google Search Console for your website, and we can determine what keywords are we actually targeting, what keywords are on the website, and what keywords are people using to get to the website that aren't being used on the website. And those are striking distance keywords. Like you almost have them. And they're just permutations on the same sorts of keywords that you're probably already targeting. But Google is very specific about what it shows people.
Yeah.
So you typed in pizza recipe. That is a very different search term than adding an S to that recipe.
Okay.
So pizza recipes will show you a completely different page. And even the keyword targeting is different for that. You're going to have a lot of those striking distance keywords that you can target, and you can just sort them by search volume and say, okay, maybe these keywords are the ones that we can use. Your other advantage is going to be in targeting locally, because this is a place where you can go out and you can do that face-to-face networking that we were talking about. And you can be a part of peer groups and, chambers of commerce and all that good stuff. Get a good idea of what people in your general area are looking for and target specifically for that. Because maybe they're facing different problems than something like a national accounting firm would try and target, because they don't know the ecosystem around here like you do.
Right.
And that's, another good reason to do that in-person networking.
Google Search Console. And let's say I want to find my striking distance keywords.
Yeah, there was one that was like asking like, what is net 30? That one had pretty high impressions. You could write like a comprehensive blog post about defining payment terms. And, net 30 could be one of those. Or you could write a blog post specifically about what is net 30, or how do you define net 30, or whatever.
Yeah.
And you could do that with like all of these.
Good content is really just about a topic and then all of the branches out from that topic.
Right. Now we're starting to get into pillar pages and topic clusters, probably multiple blog posts that are like super long. Like it could be just like QuickBooks. That one blog post talked all about different things with QuickBooks. So how do you use QuickBooks? What do you use it for? Why do I need it? Why is it so hard to use? Is Intuit a tax scheme or a tax fraud company? All of those, like you could write a couple or a few paragraphs for each of those.
Okay.
And inside of that pillar page, you have internal linking to different topics. All of those get shoveled off into part of another topic cluster. You can do that with like basically every single one of these keywords. And you can sort of start to see how this kind of like spider webs through your website with a bunch of different content, with a bunch of internal linking. So people who are like, how do I use QuickBooks? They Google that, you show up, and then not only do they get this super comprehensive blog post is set as your pillar page, then their dwell time is really, really high. And Google is like, hell yes, bring it on. This content is very comprehensive. It's very long. It has a lot of supplementary media. It has a lot of keywords inside of it, but the keyword density is low enough that they're not keyword stuffing.
Right.
And users obviously like this because the dwell time is super high. So I'm going to rank this accordingly because the users love it. These people are an authority on this topic. That word there is key, authority. So Google measures that by how often people use your website, how long they stay on it, how they travel through it, what your content is actually about. And then they determine that you're an authoritative person or company on this specific topic.
Yeah.
And then it gives you that ranking for every single topic that you target. So there are multiple windows for you to get in on this. Plus, like you can goose your ratings by trying to get into like the fact schema to get onto the frequently asked questions, or getting into the featured snippets by having short paragraphs and concise information. There are a lot of windows in that house, but they're all kind of high up there. So you got to get a ladder.
Yeah. Like how... Seems like I need an elevator. If you can afford it, or if you're like a growing business, like should you just hire someone or an agency or a company to handle a lot of that or help you figure all that stuff out? Or is this something that most businesses are able to handle internally?
I really don't want to push people towards like hiring an agency because
Yeah.
you are the authority on your topic. Right? A
Right.
marketing agency doesn't know anything about QuickBooks. I really like it when people can do this on their, or can work with someone close to them that is in their company, an employee or someone that they get off of one of the contractor websites, so that you can share the knowledge and expertise and get something in return, like a good a good blog post that you can then edit and make sure is good. SEO agencies are like borderline predatory. Some of them actually do their jobs, but a lot of them are just like, we'll get you 1,000 backlinks in a week, or we'll get you position 1 on these keywords in like 2 weeks. Let's say that today you decided, I want to comprehensively change my website, and then a genie showed up and was like, tomorrow your website is brand new, different. It takes months for those changes to propagate through the search engines. That's not how it works. There are some ways to brute force that through a lot of very high quality backlinks. So if you have an SEO agency that has journalists in their pockets that work for Reuters and Associated Press and CNN and NBC, and they have all of these journalists write articles, post them on their websites, and then link back to your website, and then those articles get social sharing, then very quickly you can rank up in a certain topic because Google will take notice of that extreme activity. But when you're trying to do it organically, it's just not. As far as the content goes, just hiring a writer, even if it's like a part-time, like 10 hours a week or something like that. It doesn't even have to be like a good writer. As long as your time editing it doesn't surpass the time that it would have taken you to write it yourself.
Yes.
But you could hire like a college kid. They can generally put information together.
Yeah.
And then all you have to do is send them like the synopsis and do a little bit of editing. All they have to do is write blog posts. That's literally all your whole job. Give them topics and tell them to write about it. Do a little bit of research. Here are some bullet points that are important, from my expertise level. Send it to me or send it to Austin, and we'll go over it real quick. Make sure that the information is good and legit and post it. Once you get up to a good amount of blog posts, you can cut that person loose. You can just go back to that old content and refresh it. That forces a re-index, and that makes it so that content is brand new all over again.
Yeah, everything comes back to, can you afford it? You could brute force Google or Facebook or whatever ads that you're doing, but like, is your budget big enough? You can do SEO and build all of this content, but do you have enough time and do you have enough money?
And if you don't have that money, then you got to play smarter. The unfortunate thing is that instead of having all the money in the world to do all that stuff, now you've got to spend your time to do it. And that is one resource that small businesses do not have.
Right.
Small business owners are crushed all the time by having to do so many different things. In my consulting, getting people to do like 2 social media posts a week is like pulling teeth. And this is the bare minimum. And they're like, time is money and I don't have time to do this. And it's like, well, if you don't spend time on this, I'm telling you, this translates into money later on. I always tell them, like, get out of the house, go to Starbucks and just write.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm talking about social media posts here. So we're 150 words?
Yeah. You
could pump that out in like half an hour and find the images for those posts too. And then on top of that, probably build a landing page for that specific
So if a young, spry, extremely knowledgeable, handsome, good-looking person wanted to work with you, where would they find you? What does the SBDC do? Tell, I guess, shill a little bit.
This is the Orange County Inland Empire Network. So we have a bunch of different SBDCs. The overall network is responsible for something I really should have dug up the stats, like in the multiple hundreds of millions of economic impact and capital infusion, which means that money is going directly into the local economies through business owners like you. So every dollar you spend and every dollar that we get you to spend through grants or loans or whatever goes right back into the economy, is capital infusion. and helps everyone around us. And that's kind of like the main goal of the SBDC, outside of like actually doing small business stuff. And then there's the other part where the Small Business Development Center isn't really marketed all that well. And that's because we take all of the grant money we get, we take all of the support we get from the Small Business Administration and the California GoBiz, which is the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. So it's like a whole department up in Sacramento. So yeah, we take all of that money and we put it right back into our programs. We put it right back into our consultants. Every single consultant in the Small Business Development Center has either small business experience or is a current small business owner. So you know that you're talking, when you go to us, you're talking to a peer, someone who has been through these problems. Maybe not necessarily in the same permutations that you have, but we all understand that resources are scarce, time is scarce, and you have things that need to be done right now. It's from simple stuff like licensing and getting the sales permit from California, or getting a business license from your city, to getting grants or getting loan funds, or even more complex topics like what I cover with like SEO and stuff like that. So we really cover just about everything except for like law stuff and tax stuff. That's a landmine
for a
nonprofit.
Yeah.
We always have to preface all that stuff with, I'm not a lawyer.
But all the advice that you do give is free.
Yes. Which is something I should have said right from the start. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, it's wow, you're a really good salesman.
I'm pretty good at this, you know.
Yeah. Way to cover for me. Yes, it's all completely 100% free.
Yeah.
Everything. Webinars, programs, in-person things, networking opportunities, and one-on-one consulting that can go on basically forever.
Yeah.
It's all completely free. No one will ever charge you a dime. No one will ever send you to their own business to get money out of you. It's all free. It's an unbelievably good resource. There's also SCORE. That's like more like C-suite mentoring. Those are people that have been CEOs and CFOs and stuff. They're also kind of located everywhere in the U.S., just like the SBDCs in all 50 states. And they do sort of like what we do, but it's a little bit closer. And again, it's more like mentoring rather than getting basic advice.
Thank you for letting me take your time forever on into the future for free. You know, I really appreciate it. But seriously, the things that we've been able to talk about and the things that we've been working on together for the past couple of months have been like just extremely helpful in just ensuring that like I'm on the right track with all the marketing things that we're doing, and then giving me the confidence to go and be like, okay, I'm going to test these things and then talk about them with Ryan.
I love that. I love hearing that. I'm glad that you had a good experience. We are kind of there to not only give you ideas and give you the tools to succeed, but also to do what you just talked about, like giving you the confidence to do it and helping you understand that you deserve what you're getting.
Yeah.
So for good or ill. You know, generally I just want to help people.
Yeah.
And I want to use my powers for good. So
all right, cool. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and I'll talk to you I think in a couple of weeks, next week.
All right, man. Take it easy. Have a good weekend.
You too. Okay, so we're just going to play this YouTube thing. I want to send it to you. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, that's fine. It's your show, man.
But seriously, I'm a shit marketer,